Hello guys. Today we're going to talk about the newest Star Wars movie. Now, I did see this movie last week when it was 2019, and I was going to do it right after my previous after the Jumanji video, but stuff happened, so that kind of took a backseat for a little bit, but I'm doing this one and we're doing it today. So we're going to talk about The Rise of Skywalker, a very divisive film, kind of like The Last Jedi. Disney movies, they haven't really the Disney Star Wars movies, they're good, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So this movie was released in 2019. It's rated PG-13. It's about 2 hours and 21 minutes long. It has 7.0 out of 10 on IMDb with about a 96,000-ish user votes and has 54% on Metacritic with about 58 critics. Stars, let's see, it stars Adam Driver, who was in Patterson, and Daisy Ridley, who was in Murder on the Orient Express. And it was directed by J.J. Abrams, who also produced Lost, the TV show Lost. On Rotten Tomatoes, the movie has 57% by critics, with about 257 critics, and 86% by audiences, with about 79,000-ish user audiences. And the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker suffers from a frustrating lack of imagination, but concludes his beloved saga with fan-focused devotion. Okay, so this movie's going to be tough to talk about without giving away stuff. So I'm going to try not to, but if I get to a point in the video where I feel like I have to give away something, I'll let you guys know. You can just stop watching. I feel like most people have seen it. I will say the first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters was The Last Jedi. And there was a lot of hype for that. There was lines, everything you expect from a Star Wars, debut. I didn't really see that with Rise of Skywalker. Granted, I saw it at an 11 a.m. showing, so during like the day, like Friday. So maybe I skipped that, but it felt like people weren't as excited to see this one as the previous ones, and I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that I think a lot of people don't like Last Jedi, and I think a lot of it is because it did stuff differently than other Star Wars movies did. It pushed stuff. Now, was everything perfect? No. Some stuff was a little awkward. Some stuff you could have probably cut out and would have been fine. But the fact of the matter is that it did shit different. And I'll always give credit to movies that do stuff differently than movies that follow the norm. Always. Guaranteed. Even the movie's technically worse off for it. This movie, I will say, I watched it with my sister and Corey, and they both felt very similar that a lot of people felt about the movie. Critics, actually, they kind of shared their opinions with critics. I understood why. I really liked this movie. Do I love it? Kinda. It's all right. Let's talk about the ingredients. Acting is good. There's nothing wrong with the acting. The quality isn't there, except for the only real issue with the movie is the writing. And I read a comment that this should have been split into two movies. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that they probably could have done that and might have been better off for it. But we would have to sacrifice the symmetry of the three trilogy format for it. So yeah, but I think the real issue of the movie is that I will say it does cater to fan service excessively. Like, it feels like now this I do love Force Awakens, But I will say this, and a big criticism I heard about J.J. Abrams, I haven't seen a lot of his movies. I haven't seen his Star Trek movies, or I haven't watched Lost. I haven't watched a lot of J.J. Abrams stuff. But a criticism I have heard about his movies is that he doesn't know how to end movies. And I can see that. Because The Force Awakens, I thought the climax was I wouldn't say awful, just a little weak. Um, the climax to this, I don't think the ending to this movie's weak, but I do think some people thought it was a little weird. Some minor decisions that went into the climax. And I did notice something. The climax does kind of I know it's about a lot of these movies in general nowadays in general where they're starting to try to like the big end because it used to be in in a in like a young adult movies they split the last book in halves and they have the big epic climax, the big battle to end all battles, and and then Endgame came out and it upped it, and it kind of feels like they were trying to do that with this Star Wars, and it could have worked if a lot of the main characters were still around, but a lot of but they're but most of them aren't. I'm not gonna say who because some people, although I feel like most people who are watching this do know who I'm talking about, and it's not a spoiler to say Palpatine is in this movie and he is glorious. Um, the way they used him can be argued doesn't really quite help, but he's in the movie enough to for satisfaction. He I think he has about the same amount of screen time as Return of the Jedi, maybe a little less, but not by much. Um, I think like, but yeah, the writing's the biggest thing, and a lot of it is just the fan fiction, the fan service stuff is a real thing. And in honesty, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the decisions. I don't really a lot of the criticism of the movie, specifically with critics, but I did read some casual people having issues with it, is that everyone's like, "Oh, I had to make up for Last Jedi." Last Jedi was a good movie in my book. There was nothing wrong with Last Jedi other than it pushed buttons. And Empire Strikes Back pushed buttons. Now, is Last Jedi as good as Empire Strikes Back? No, it's not. But it tried the same thing. And I will say, if they were, it may on paper it makes sense to have the director opening this trilogy, close the trilogy. But in all honesty, they probably should have picked a different guy because because they either should have just had all three of them be J.J. Abrams or just have each one be a different director. Because having it done like this, because the guy who did Last Jedi, Ryan Johnson, he wrote the script for it before The Force Awakens was released. So, or when it was released, or something like that. Something where it was kind of shown it was bad timing. But the thing is that I like the decisions in The Last Jedi because it changed the game and made things different. It challenged things. Return of the Rise of Skywalker, they kind of backtrack a little. I'm not gonna say it's to a point where I feel like it completely destroys Last Jedi because it really doesn't. It's just a couple minor little things that you might pick up on, like character behavior or something minor like that. Nothing real major. And there was a lot of great moments in the movie too. A lot. There was some decent wow moments too. There was an odd moment there and there, but in all honesty, I liked the movie a lot. Do I think it's a great conclusion to 9 films? In all honesty, I never felt like the sequel trilogy was like a continuation of Skywalker as Luke Skywalker. This is not really a continuation of the main four group. This is kind of this is a passing the torch trilogy. It's really more about the old people passing on the torch to the new people. That's the whole trilogy in a nutshell. It's not a whole trilogy of new people and that's it. It's not a whole trilogy of the old heroes and that's it. It's a passing the torch trilogy. And I think that's what people don't realize is that this is not a trilogy where their true conclusion, all the characters' true conclusions was Return of the Jedi. That's their true conclusion. This is just an afterthought. This is just like the future. This is Luke Skywalker being this is his time to be Obi-Wan, or this is Harrison Ford's time to be this kind of story arc character or something. It's not really meant, and I think that's what a lot of people didn't get. And I don't think a lot of people realized, oh wait, these new characters are going to be characters we're going to see for a long ass time. Shit, we didn't realize this. And here's something I read a while ago that they did plan on doing Star Wars movies with these characters in this trilogy in other movies, in other movies, not necessarily trilogies, but on other future films. So this trilogy was kind of more meant to kind of be a jumping off point for these characters, which makes sense. So if this film doesn't feel completely conclusive, that's why, because their stories aren't done yet. So these last three films, I know I'm talking about these three films in general because really Rise of Skywalker is not a bad movie, but it's not great. And I may have to watch it again. There was a lot of great scenes in this movie. It's just the fan service and the story. While when I watched it, I thought it was great, but thinking about it now, I think it's kind of I can live with it. I don't get that hard up on it. It's Star Wars. It's not The Godfather. I mean, Star Wars films, they're not built on complexity, they're built on emotion. And as long as the characters feel the emotions and believe in those emotions, it works. Even in the freaking prequels, which aren't by any stretch of the imagination great Star Wars movies, they're not bad movies. Now, I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but if you take the prequels, I know I'm getting off track, but bear with me. If you take the prequels and you just compare them to movies in general, they're average to good. Compare them to the rest of the Star Wars movies, they're terrible. But they're not bad movies. Especially Revenge of the Sith is a legit good movie. Phantom Menace, Jar Jar, young Anakin, I don't need to say anymore. Attack of the Clones, some people can't quite get into. I think it's better than Phantom Menace, and that's a whole discussion for another day. But basically what I'm saying is that this is a good movie. You should see it if you haven't already. And for people who hate Last Jedi, this movie might please some of you because it tries to come back more where Force Awakens left off. And for people who love Last Jedi, I will say they don't completely dismantle it, but it's a lot of stuff that was thrown in Last Jedi. You're probably not going to quite get the same vibe in this, but you're still going to have fun. And there is some rehashing, I will say that. But in all honesty, I don't mind it because I love seeing Palpatine again on the big screen. That was a big thing for me, and I loved it. I think it was it's not a conclusion of Luke Skywalker as a character, but it's a conclusion of the Skywalker legacy. There's no more you can do with that legacy. It's fully been finished. The prequels that got it started, the originals that built it, and the Disney trilogy that let it be passed on. That's kind of how I see it, and they're great movies for it. And like I said, out of the new trilogies, I don't think this is. I think this is. I think for me it would be Last Jedi, Force Awakens, and this. But this is a very good movie. You're not gonna regret seeing it. You're gonna love it. It does get a little fan servicey at times, but not to a point where it offended me. Not like some other people. But yeah, I'm gonna end it there. It's a great movie. A lot of the other greens are well executed. There's nothing. Some people might have issues with the story. A lot of people do, mostly critics. Some audience people may. I've seen a lot of debates on people about this and Last Jedi and what should have been done, but at the end of the day, you just gotta let the storytellers tell their story. You gotta let them tell it. You may not agree with it. You may want to see things a little differently, but it's told, it's done. Accept it, enjoy it. Don't get too riled up on it. It's a movie. It's not if it is what it is. It's Star Wars. It's not going to end. You got the Mandalorian show. You got a lot of other stuff. And yes, the Skywalker saga, 9 films. In all honesty, I think a lot of people were expected like a big thing with the 9th film, but it's not. It's more like the end of the trilogy more than 9 films. And based on how they built and told it and shared what they were planning on doing, the way this trilogy ended makes sense. And in all honesty, it's a lot more I could talk about on stream, but I'm not gonna get fully. It's just too much. If you guys want to talk in the comments or even on our Discord channel, which is a link in the about page of our channel, feel free. I'm open to discuss, share opinions and thoughts on that film or anything in general. And yeah, it was a good movie. It's still on in theaters. I recommend seeing it if you haven't already. I suspect most people have who are Star Wars fans. If you're not a Star Wars fan, let me know why you're not a Star Wars fan. I'm curious. Maybe you may become a Star Wars fan the more you hear about it. Sometimes I feel like, at least for me, the more I hear about something, more I learn about, the more I can determine whether I'm going to like it or hate it. And I feel like that's a lot of people. But yeah, guys, overall it's a good movie. Check it out. And yeah, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the videos and have a good day.